When I got married and moved into this house, I found a spot in the storeroom to store my large luggage and kept it there. One day, I opened the storeroom for something and noticed that my luggage, which should have been there, was gone. Wait, my luggage is gone. No matter where I looked, I couldn't find it. Where I had stored it, there were boxes filled with comics and DVDs stacked on top of each other. Hey, my luggage that was in the storeroom is gone, you know? I asked my husband, but he replied, I don't know. I also asked John, my husband's son from his previous marriage. Then John coldly told me, oh, I threw that away. I felt that this situation was not acceptable. David, my husband, thinks that when John gets angry, there's no telling what he might do, so he can't scold him. Using that as an excuse, John comfortably stays in his room. Furthermore, John sees me as a newcomer and treats me with hostility. But currently, I am the one handling the housework and financially supporting this house. I can continue to spoil John, who just stays in his room without working and acts haughty. So, I made a plan to be stricter with John from now on and persuaded David. My name is Mia, currently 35 years old. I'm employed as a salesperson in a company. I've been single for a long time, focusing on my work, but I got married last year. My husband, David, is 50 years old this year, 15 years older than me. He was an employee of a company I dealt with. Every time we met, our relationship deepened, and eventually we started going out for meals together. He was divorced. Moreover, he apparently has an adult son from his previous marriage. With his age and past divorce, I felt a slight apprehension about deepening our relationship. However, David is a very kind person, and I always feel completely at ease with him. Soon, we started dating with marriage in mind for the future. For me, who had always been dedicated to my work, meeting him became increasingly important. It seems he feels the same way about me, cherishing me deeply. Eventually, he formally proposed to me. Mia, will you be with me? I felt incredibly happy. I was already 35, and I thought getting married would be difficult. But meeting such a kind man and getting proposed to felt like a dream. Yes, gladly, I accept. Thus, after a few months of dating, we got married quickly. Since David has his own house, I left the apartment where I used to live and started living together at his place. When I moved to the new home, I was very surprised. I found out there was an unexpected housemate. It was John, the 25 years old son of David and his ex-wife. I had heard from David before that he had a son over 20 years old. However, I never imagined he was still living with David. I'm sorry I didn't tell you more about my son, Mia. I thought if I told you that I was still living with my son, you might reject my proposal. I truly apologize. David made an excuse with a guilty expression on his face. Why didn't you tell me earlier? I was stunned by the shocking truth. Of course, I thought we would be living alone as a couple. But now that we're married, we have to find a way to cope. I made up my mind and decided to greet John. Currently, John isn't working and seems to spend most of his day in his room. To greet me, John reluctantly came out of his room with David. John is slightly chubby with pale skin, messy hair, and wears glasses. He appeared with a gloomy expression. John was dressed in a worn-out t-shirt and shorts. The thought of living in this house with him in the future, I couldn't help but shiver. Nice to meet you, John. I have married David and will be living here from now on. Please take care of me. I greeted him and bowed my head. John just stared at me blankly without saying a word. Then, without changing his expression, John said, "Who's this lady?" I was stunned. Huh? Lady? Sure, from John's perspective, I might be much older, but being called lady by someone I've just met was quite shocking. That was incredibly rude. I felt a strong sense of anger. She's not some lady. Her name is Mia. Since I married Mia, she's essentially your mother now. Please, let's try to get along. Ha ha ha. David, for some reason, while being tense, spoke to John with a friendly demeanor. I don't know why, but it seems he can't be too stern with John. So, now I have to live with this grown son. The more I think about it, the more my anxiety grows. Even after getting married, I continue to work the same amount as before. As a result, I usually get home around 9 p.m. After I finished work and came home, David came home shortly after. I just got home too, so I will start preparing dinner right away. Sorry about that. In exchange, I will clean the bathroom and get the water ready for a bath. David and I divided the household chores. While preparing dinner, something struck my mind. John is always home, doesn't seem to be working, and doesn't help with any housework. If he is living here, I think he could at least help with cleaning the bathroom. After dinner preparations were complete, I went to John's room to call him. John, dinner's ready. Would you like to join us? Even when I called out to him, John didn't come out of his room. No matter what I said, John completely ignored me. In the end, I asked David and he brought dinner on a tray to John's room. It seems he accepted a meal. After a while, I went to John's room and checked the tray. The food was hurriedly touched and it was left at the door. David went into the room to ask about it, and apparently John had said, I tried a bit but didn't like the taste, so I'm good. Having worked late and then cooking dinner with all my effort, it was really frustrating to hear that. According to David, John usually buys his favorite food from the convenience store and eats it in his room whenever he wants. So, you are giving John money to buy things from the convenience store, aren't you? Yeah, I don't want him to get sick from hunger. David responded with a hint of bitterness. In a blink, a year passed since we got married. Yet, even after a year, John continued to ignore me. No matter what I said, he doesn't respond. I clean the house toilet, bathroom, and even do his laundry. I even take out the trash from John's room. As the housewife of this home, I helped out with John's life too. Yet, John never offers a word of thanks. No matter what I say to John, he ignores me. How long will this life continue? Thinking about the future weighs me down. Then, one day, I realized something major. There was a large storage room in this house. When I moved into this house after marriage, I had found a spot in a corner of the storage room to keep my large luggage and stored it there. One day, I had a reason to open the storage and realized that my luggage, which should be there, was missing. Huh? My luggage is gone. No matter where I looked, I couldn't find it. At the place where I stored it, there are several boxes stacked up, filled with many comics and DVDs. Hey, my luggage that I kept in the storage is missing. Do you know anything about it? I asked my husband, David, but he seems clueless. The only other person whom I know is John. I knocked on John's room door and asked this. Hey John, I had my luggage in the storage. Do you know anything about it? Even when I called out to him in front of his door, he ignored me as usual. No response came from John. Seeing no progress, I decided to open the door boldly. What? Don't just come in without permission! John stood sitting at his computer desk, turned around with hostility. I had my luggage in the storage, and it's missing. Do you know anything about it? When I asked him that, John coldly replied, Oh, I got rid of that. What? You discarded it? I was taken aback and frozen in place. In John's messy room, I stood there, dumbfounded. The room felt damp since the window was closed, and there was an indescribable unpleasant odor lingering. What do you mean you got rid of it? My room was overflowing with stuff, and when I wanted to store some comics and DVDs, your belongings were in the way in the storage, so I just got rid of them. Having said that with extreme calmness, John continued playing his computer game as if nothing happened. I quickly complained to John. Inside, there are my yearbook and hours I received, memories I had cherished and kept. Even with my outburst, John seems unaffected. You're already old. What's the point in keeping a yearbook? Saying that, John picked up some snacks and began eating. There was also a wooden box containing tea ceremony utensils, wasn't there? Back in the day, I had collected various tea ceremony tools while attending tea ceremony classes. Recently, I haven't enjoyed a tea ceremony due to my busy schedule, but occasionally, I would take out the tools and prepare some tea. Oh, that? It looked variable, so I sold it online instead of throwing it away. What? I was utterly shocked. The thought of him selling my possessions without my knowledge was inconceivable. This is my house. I was the first to live here. It's only natural that I prioritize my things, right? I can't tolerate people who came later just leaving their stuff around. John pushed me out and closed the door. I was stunned. Not just disposing of my things, but turning them into money was beyond belief. I've been living in this house from the start. There was undeniable truth in his words. While increasing family members is joyous, understanding the complex feelings of having a certain stepmother due to one's father remarrying is also natural. However, I'm not just some freeloader. Since coming here, I've done quite a lot. I felt it was too harsh for my belongings to be discarded without my consent. This can't go on. With that thought, I resolved to share my feelings with David. David was surprised, but in the end, he agreed with my idea. I've been too concerned about John causing trouble at home and have been overly accommodating. But I feel that this isn't right. That's why I support Mia's idea. Thus, we began our strategy against John. At first, we stopped giving John meals. I asked David not to give him any money. It was to limit him from buying food from restaurants or convenience stores. John had a fair amount of money in his room. Probably because he got it from his father, he didn't understand the value of money. John started collecting the money scattered around his room and somehow bought snack foods from convenience stores to satiate his hunger. When David and I weren't home because of work, we locked the refrigerator to prevent John from helping himself. We also locked the other food cabinets. With his money running out, John found it hard to get food. When David and I weren't around, he came to the kitchen looking for something to eat, but found nothing. One day, I came home from work as usual and prepared dinner. While my husband and I were enjoying our meal and conversing, John appeared out of nowhere. Seeing us eat, John swallowed his saliva audibly. John, it's rare to see you outside of your room. Is something wrong? John silently stared back. Want to join us for a meal, John? After a brief pause, John quietly nodded. He must have been quite hungry. As evidence, his stomach grumbled loudly. Then, please wait. As the old saying goes, he who does not work, neither shall he eat. John, if you want dinner, could you help clean the toilet? Me? Clean the toilet? John clearly looked displeased. Yes, you use the toilet every day, right? You'd be grateful if you helped, right, David? Absolutely. John, please help out. With David's agreement, John, albeit unwillingly, headed to the toilet to start cleaning. And within just 5 minutes, John returned to the living room. I'm done. Oh, that was quick. I went to check the cleaning result in the toilet. Unfortunately, it's still not good enough. Could you redo it? Redo? I scrubbed it though. The bowl, it still needs more scrubbing. I can't serve you dinner like this. After delivering those words, I left the toilet. John seemed unhappy, but he started cleaning again. Having confirmed that the toilet was completely clean, I served dinner to him. John took his dinner tray and tried to return to his room. Wait, please eat your dinner in the living room. Upon hearing my words, John looked displeased. However, he placed his tray on the table and began to eat in silence. He must have been really hungry as he ate at an astonishing speed. When you are done, please wash your plate. Seemingly resigned, John washed his plate. Then, looking tired, he sighed and went back to his room. However, this was just the beginning. I planned to continue my retaliation against John. One day, John approached me with a question. I had my comics stored in the storeroom, but now they're gone. Where are they? As always, his way of speaking was blunt. Oh, those? I looked straight into his eyes and responded clearly. I sold all of them. Is there a problem? What? John's face turned pale in an instant. Why did you sell them? Well, to be honest, I just don't understand why you'd buy so many comics that they won't even fit in your room. If you keep doing that, this house will be buried under your comics and DVDs. They were in the way because there were too many, so I had them sold to a dealer. John's face tightened with anger. Hey, that's way out of line. That's my line? You also got rid of my precious graduation album. If you are going to complain about me selling comics you bought with your parents' money, isn't it the same thing? John gritted his teeth, holding back his anger. Who the hell do you think you are? Doing whatever you please. Aren't you describing yourself? Being 25 and not working, depending on your parents, and yelling loudly in the house. David, are you ready? I asked David loudly. David raised his smartphone and nodded at me. I'm always ready. Listen, John, if you make a fuss at home, I'm recording it on my smartphone and I'll call the police immediately. Be prepared, David declared with a firm tone. Since I started retaliating against John, David had also adopted a strict attitude. Realizing that even David wasn't on his side, John panicked and ran to his room. He was probably afraid of being reported to the police. I got married young and went through a divorce. My previous wife left me and John. I'm a pathetic man. I felt guilty towards John, which is why I hardly ever scolded him. I kept giving him money and let him live freely. Lately, David seems to regret pampering John too much. Since middle school, John hardly attended school and barely graduated from the high school he finally got into. After that, he never worked part-time and stayed shut in at home. Whenever something happens, John will lock himself in his room. Everyone needs a place to escape to. But as long as he stays locked up at home, he probably won't change. I shared the next plan with David. Wait, you're going that far? David was extremely surprised. It might be a bit extreme, but just as Amia said, John probably won't change with the method we've been using. David seemed hesitant at first, but in the end, he said he would cooperate. One Sunday morning, David and I had finished our breakfast. We saw John leave his room and head to the bathroom. After exchanging glances, we called out to John as he exited the bathroom. John, can you come here for a moment? A sleepy John walked into the living room. His hair was a mess as usual, and he had a look of annoyance over his face. David and I looked at him with a smile. What do you want this early in the morning? It seems like John had been all up night playing video games as usual. Because of that, he looked very tired and sleepy. He probably intended to take a nap soon. Excuse me for a moment? John, thank you so much for everything. Really appreciate it. I expressed thanks, even though I didn't really feel it, and both deeply. Even though he hadn't done anything for me, I was so filled with joy that these words just slipped out. Huh? What? John stood there, looking surprised. Meanwhile, David cleared his throat, straightened up, and looked towards John, preparing to speak next. John, I'm sorry for this sudden announcement, but Mia and I have decided to leave this house today. What? You leaving the house? John was taken aback. I continued. You might not be aware, John, but we pay a monthly loan of $1,800 for this house. What? A monthly house loan of $1,800. I thought the loan was finished a long time ago. John was shocked. Apparently, he was unaware of this fact. Ever since we got married, I've been handling the daily chores at home and have also been financially supporting the family. We still have several years left on this house loan. With just David's income, it's hard to make the payments. So, I've also been contributing to repay the loan. Because of me, John has been able to live carefree in one of the rooms in this house. Despite living in this house, John hasn't paid anything, and it's absurd for him to claim it's his house. Most of the expenses, including utility bills and property tax, are paid from my salary. He's always been a shut-in and isn't aware of societal matters. So it's no surprise he doesn't know about the house loan. Actually, it would take many more years to repay this loan. The monthly payment of $1,800 is quite tough on us. So, after discussing it thoroughly as a couple, we've decided to sell this house and move to a rental apartment. Wait, what does that mean for me? What happens to me? John looked at David and me with a panicked expression. About that, John, I purposely made a troubled face. The new apartment isn't spacious enough to accommodate you as well. You agree, right, David? Yes, it's just enough for us to live in. However, not having to pay the $1,800 every month is a relief. Wait, where am I supposed to live? John raised his voice with an irritated expression. Excuse me? I don't know what you're talking about. I tried to keep my composure. What do you mean you don't know? That makes no sense. A 25-year-old man shouldn't be shocked about losing a house. You could look for living jobs or find another way, right? I put pressure on John. How can you say that all of a sudden? John, please don't come to our new place. Wait, you've already decided where you're moving? John looked even more distressed, and sweat started to appear on his forehead. Yes, we have to leave this house today. We've already sold it to the real estate agent, so it won't be our house from tomorrow. David asserted as well. Today is the last day we'll have breakfast in this house. The moving company will be here soon. You're leaving today? Why is this happening all of a sudden? John, clearly upset, confronted me. John, you might not have known since you were always locked in your room. But we've been planning this for a while. Why didn't you tell me before? I calmly responded to the very angry John. But John, you're always busy with your games and never come out of your room. So it was hard to find the right time. Well, if you can pay the monthly $1,800, you can continue living here. You know I can't afford that right now. John paced around the room, scratching his head with a look of anxiety. Suddenly, the doorbell rang, and the movers came in. Please move everything except for what's in this room to the new place. I conveyed this to the movers outside John's room. Huh? So, we don't need to move the items from this room to the new place? For now, just leave them as they are. I responded firmly. Wait, just like that? While John was still in shock, items outside his room started being swiftly loaded onto the truck. Confused and unsure of where he would live from the next day, John was distraught. Our belongings were loaded onto the truck in no time. John, make sure to clear out everything in your room by tomorrow. The real estate agent is coming. Take care of yourself, John. It's not about taking care. This isn't a joke. We got into our car, leaving the house along with the mover's truck. Looking back, I could still see a dejected John. Unsure of what to do, John spent the night in his room, trying to brush off the situation. However, the next day, the real estate agent came and pressured him to move out immediately. Desperately, John had to move his bed, desk, TV, and other belongings out by himself. Unable to just leave these items on the street, he had no choice but to call a buyer and sell each item. He couldn't keep his games, comics, DVDs, and had to sell them too. Through this ordeal, John learned a valuable lesson. Being able to comfortably spend time in his own room and immerse himself in his hobbies was all thanks to his parents taking out a loan to buy a house. However, that support from his parent is now a thing of the past. John found himself forced to seek a way to live with fewer possessions. This figure is actually quite rare. Isn't there a chance it could go for a higher price? Also, this comic collection is a complete set. There must be demand for it. Can you please buy it for as high price as possible? I beg you. John desperately negotiated with the buyer in front of his house, selling his precious belongings. Neighborhood residents whispered among themselves, saying things like, "So, that's the kind of guy who lived in that house?" And, "I heard he was a shut-in." But John didn't have the luxury of caring about such gossip. Once the items were sold, all that was left in front of him were worthless scraps. Neighborhood residents scolded him, shouting, "Are you planning to dump trash on the street?" John repeatedly made trips to the garbage disposal area, managing to get rid of everything. With a wallet containing only small change and a backpack in hand, he left the house where he had secluded himself for so long. John wandered the streets until he found a job at the construction site with dormitory accommodations. However, John wasn't accustomed to physical labor. As soon as he tried to lift a heavy object, he lost his balance and nearly fell. His coworkers at the construction site berated him. "You're so young, but you have no strength. Put more spirit into your work." John poured out a sweat, working tirelessly every day to earn his keep. He became more tan than before, lost weight, and appeared aged. On the other hand, David and I moved to an apartment, enjoying our comfortable daily lives. The apartment is spacious enough for the two of us, and the rent is about half of what we're paying for the previous house's mortgage. Selling the old house brought in a good amount of money. With that, our minds were at ease, and we were able to live a healthier life. When we lived in the previous house, living with a reclusive son was mentally and financially challenging. Though it was a somewhat forceful method, being freed from living with John and making the bold decision to expel him, I believe it was good for both us and for him. For me, who couldn't help John become independent and didn't have the courage, you were a savior. I'm grateful. Being thanked in such a way by David fills me with joy. Lately, we've even had the luxury of going on trips together on weekends, making us feel even happier. Marrying David was truly the best decision, and I am living happily every day.
Grandma, Mom stopped moving. What should we do? A late-night call from my granddaughter woke me from my sleep. When I asked the crying and distraught child, "What happened to your dad?" I received an unexpected answer. "He kicked Mom's stomach, and then he went somewhere." I rushed to my granddaughter's home to find a shocking sight. My daughter had collapsed and was unconscious. After an emergency trip to the hospital, I was told an unbelievable story. How could he do this to my precious daughter? I won't forgive him. At that moment, I decided to take revenge on my son-in-law. I am Emily. I am 65 years old and recently retired from the company I had worked at for many years. My husband passed away a few years ago and I now live alone. My only daughter's name is Catherine. She works at a bank. 7 years ago, she married Tom, who works for the government, and they have a lovely daughter, Karen, who is now 5 years old. My son-in-law, Tom, is gentle and trustworthy, so I felt safe leaving my daughter and granddaughter in his care. They live about 30 minutes away by car, and they often visit with Karen, providing us with many enjoyable moments. One day, as Catherine and Karen visited, we sipped tea and watched Karen play. I had a question for Catherine. Has Tom changed his department at work recently? Yes, he moved to the Future Division of Health and Welfare Center last month. Is that related to child rearing support? It seems so, but he's been very busy and works late every night. I used to think working for the government lets you leave on time, but it seems that's not the case anymore. Considering Tom's gentle nature, I thought welfare and child-rearing support work might suit him perfectly. I see. It must be tough with all the overtime. I know you're busy too, but please support Tom. If you need help with daycare pickups, I can assist. Just let me know. Catherine smiled and said, "Thank you," and left with Karen. After that conversation, Catherine rarely visited, and the only message I received was, "Sorry, I've been too busy to stop by." I didn't want to interfere too much in their lives. As long as they were happy, that was enough for me. But one day, while out shopping, I coincidentally saw Tom. He was in a suit, getting into a government car with a young woman seated next to him. Catherine had mentioned that Tom sometimes went out for work, so I assumed he was on duty. I just silently cheered him on and didn't think much of it. About a month later, on a Sunday, I had an errand near Catherine's home, so I thought I'd stop by, but no matter how long I waited, there was no response to my message. Feeling uneasy, I decided to visit without waiting for a reply. I rang the doorbell, and Catherine's voice came through immediately. "Mom, why are you here all of a sudden?" She seemed surprised that I had reached out. I explained that I was in the area and thought I'd visit. Catherine went silent. Then I heard Tom's voice.
"Emily, could you wait a moment? The place is a bit messy."
"Oh, Tom, I'm sorry for the sudden visit."
"It's okay. We'd be happy if you saw Karen too."
I waited at the entrance for a while, and after about 5 minutes, the front door opened. Seeing Catherine, I was at a loss for words. Compared to when I saw her 3 months ago, she had lost a lot of weight and looked like a completely different person. "Catherine, what happened? You've lost so much weight." "I just thought I'd lose some weight. I was on a diet." However, I felt uneasy. At that moment, Tom came with a smile, holding slippers. "Thank you, Tom." As I entered the living room, Karen ran up excitedly. "Grandma, you came!" I naturally smiled, seeing my granddaughter after so long. Karen took my hand and suggested we play pretend. While participating, I enjoyed some casual conversation with Catherine and Tom. Suddenly, during the game Karen was engrossed in, the coffee which was given to me fell. The coffee was cold, but just to ensure there were no burns, I checked Karen's clothes. And right then I saw a painful bruise. "Catherine, how did she get this bruise?" Looking at Catherine, she was at a loss for words and looked shocked. However, Tom calmly adjusted the sleeve back.
"It seems she bumped into something while playing. It's okay."
"I'm fine now." So I decided to trust their words. Catherine took her daughter to the room to change, but didn't come back immediately. After a while, Tom went to check on them, and then all three returned to the living room. "Mom, we have something to do soon and need to go out." "Oh, I see. Sorry for dropping by suddenly." As I got up to leave, the family saw me off at the entrance. I patted Karen's head and said, "Let's play together again soon," and greeted Tom before reluctantly departing. At that time, I noticed Catherine's gloomy expression and was worried, but decided not to pry. Several weeks later, in the middle of the night, my cell phone suddenly rang. The name Catherine appeared on the screen. Sleepily answering, I unexpectedly heard Karen's crying voice. "Grandma, Mom isn't moving. What should I do?" "What? Karen, what happened? Where's Dad?" "He kicked Mom's stomach, then he left somewhere." I asked, "Can I talk to your mom?" But Karen only continued to cry. Sensing the urgency, I quickly told her, "Don't lock the front door." Then I immediately drove to Catherine's house. Arriving at the house, I rushed to the living room. Catherine was lying motionless and didn't respond to my voice. Karen kept crying next to her. "Tom, was nowhere to be seen. I quickly called an ambulance. As it arrived, I took Karen and headed to the hospital. An unsettling atmosphere lingered in the car, and anxiety mounted. Upon arriving at the hospital, all we could do was wait for Catherine's treatment to be completed. I prayed for Catherine's safety while stroking Karen's back. Karen, please listen closely. Can you tell me what happened to Mom and Dad? Yes, I woke up because there were loud voices, and then I saw Mom and Dad were fighting. It seemed like Dad was angry at Mom. And then, what happened? I wanted to protect Mom, so I went towards her. Then Dad got angry and tried to hit me like he always does. But Mom protected me. I was at a loss for words. The phrase, like he always does, implied that there might have been abuse from Tom towards Catherine and Karen from before. When I asked Karen for more details, she nodded and continued to speak. According to Karen's explanation, Catherine was thrown around by Tom while protecting Karen, and when Catherine fell, Tom kicked her stomach violently. Tom quickly left the house, and because Catherine didn't move at all, Karen, who got scared, called me for help. Dad told me, if you tell anyone that Dad hit you, you'll never see Mom again. Now that I've told Grandma, can I never see Mom again? Knowing what was in her heart, I couldn't hold back tears. Karen, with her tiny body, had endured so much, desperately holding back all the hardships she's been through. Karen, you've really been strong up until now. It must have been scary, but you don't have to worry about anything anymore. I never expected to see this unthinkable side from the usually gentle Tom. I would have never thought he could be violent towards Catherine and Karen. However, it didn't seem like Karen was lying, and considering the possibility that Tom had been regularly violent towards them, things added up considering Catherine's recent condition and Karen's bruises. Amidst all this, the doctor who had been treating Catherine came to us and began explaining her condition in detail. According to the doctor, Catherine had bleeding in her abdominal cavity, and there was a high risk of organ rupture. Therefore, emergency surgery was essential. The doctor bluntly said to us,
"It's a very dangerous situation. Please, be prepared."
Despite numerous calls trying to get Tom's consent for the surgery, I couldn't reach him. In the end, I filled out the consent form and went with the surgery, but I was trembling with anxiety and anger outside the operating room, clenching my fist tightly in rage. How dare he do this to my precious daughter? I will not forgive him. At that moment, I planned to corner Tom and make sure he was punished. Suddenly, I noticed Karen, who had fallen asleep leaning on me, was holding Catherine's mobile phone. When I checked its contents, I found astonishing evidence. After that, Catherine's surgery was successful, but due to the effects of the anesthesia, she didn't regain consciousness for a while, and her condition remained critical. I entrusted Karen to a trustworthy friend and kept praying by Catherine's bedside. Then, just before noon, Tom appeared in the hospital room, looking all calm.
"Emily, I apologize. Despite receiving the message, I was busy with my work."
Huh? Work? There's no way. More importantly, what have you done to Catherine? Tom frowned at my angry tone, but he soon found words to defend himself.
"I don't know what you're talking about, but Catherine fell on her own. I was at work at the time, and the details are unclear."
When I told him that I knew everything from my granddaughter's story, Tom laughed mockingly.
"Please, stop suspecting me. Do you believe every word from your granddaughter who's just a child?"
Still trying to run away, I see. My anger unabated, I muttered in a low voice. I can't believe you're trying to make such excuses. Was it really work? Or were you spending time with your mistress? Tom frowned in displeasure and seemed ready to argue back.
Emily, stop joking like that. I was working late for my wife and my daughter, and yet you suspect me of such things?
Although Tom tried to deny it, I showed him the photos on Catherine's mobile phone. Are you still going to make excuses even after seeing this? In Catherine's phone were images providing proof of Tom's affair. Photos of him kissing a young woman and entering a hotel, and that woman was someone I had seen in town before.
Why do you have these?
There's more. There was also a diary in Catherine's phone.
What?
It seems like she noticed a change in your attitude towards her and Karen after your department changed, and hired a private investigator to investigate.
She never mentioned anything about that.
In Catherine's diary, it was written that when she confronted Tom about his affair 2 months ago, he raised his hand against her. But that wasn't all. Catherine's diary detailed how Tom's violence escalated day by day, eventually leading to an incident where Karen got injured. Furthermore, I learned that Catherine, not wanting to trouble me and fearing threats from Tom, couldn't talk to me about it. She had been suffering in loneliness, resolved to somehow regain custody, borrowed money, and had hired an investigator to gather evidence of Tom's affair. Her recent diary read as follows. I finally gathered evidence of Tom's affair. I'm going to demand for a divorce today. Judging from this diary, it seems that during a discussion about divorce between Catherine and Tom kicked Catherine in the stomach, leading to the current situation. When I conveyed this to Tom, he suddenly began to get agitated.
You're mistaken. This is a misunderstanding.
To this, I got really angry and I finally raised my voice. Excuse me? What exactly did I misunderstand? You cheated. You hurt my daughter and my granddaughter. And you still intend to settle this as if nothing happened? Although Tom continued to be agitated, he gestured as if to say,
Well, let's calm down for a moment. Emily, shouldn't we forget about this for everyone's sake? My work and family are important to me. If this gets out, I'll lose my job, and it may cause even more pain for Karen. Let's discuss this calmly, shall we?
What are you talking about? It's already too late.
What did you say?
I've informed your workplace about your affair, as well as the injuries you caused to Catherine and Karen, providing evidence as well. Not only evidence of infidelity, but Catherine had also recorded on her voice recorder when Tom raised his hand against her. And I compiled that audio file into an email and sent it to his workplace.
Do you not understand that doing such a thing will get me fired immediately? It will only make everyone miserable.
When Tom, trembling with anger, approached me, I calmly confronted him. The future division of the Health and Welfare Center supports mothers and children in difficult situations, right? What's wrong with consulting them about what truly happened? Tom lost his words in response to my question. Then his cell phone rang. Tom answered the call, muttered something while turning pale, and then, shaking with anger, spoke to me in a fierce tone.
I was yelled at by my boss. What are you going to do about it, you old hag?
His face distorted with rage. He began to lash out. I pushed Tom away. We've obtained a medical certificate for Catherine's severe injury this time, you know. We will also submit a damage report to the police, so bear that in mind.
What? Police? You old hag, you're...
Tom glared at me with a demonic expression, but at that moment, Catherine woke up and spoke in a raspy voice. Tom, I will raise Karen, so let's get a divorce. The moment she spoke, hospital staff who had heard the commotion came rushing over. I explained the whole situation and had them report him to the police. Tom was restrained and taken away by the police. After that, Catherine recovered and her divorce from Tom was finalized. She demanded compensation from Tom and his mistress, and he was arrested on suspicion of assault against Catherine and Karen. In addition to what I had exposed, Tom, who had already been under scrutiny for his work attitude and due to the whole upheaval, faced suspension at work. The trial is ongoing, and if he is sentenced to prison, he won't be spared from disciplinary action. Furthermore, I heard he was abandoned by his own family and friends. The woman he had an affair with, having her relationship with him, became public at work. Eventually had no choice but to quit her job. Afterwards, with the compensation she received, Catherine repaid her debts and returned to my house with Karen. Catherine began to show smiles little by little, and I am spending joyful days with Karen. From now on, looking forward to Karen's growth, I want to live a peaceful life. The other day, a new member was added to our family. After many years of infertility treatments, my husband and I finally experienced a very happy moment. I was anxious during my pregnancy due to the risk of a threatened miscarriage, but giving birth safely brought immense joy. Immediately after birth, our daughter showed slight jaundice, requiring her admission to the NICU. However, the doctor reassured us that it was mostly for testing purposes, and I felt relieved. My husband Mike had to return to his parents' home during my hospital stay. The main reason was because he has never lived alone and isn't good at household chores, so I was anxious to leave him alone at home. But, to be honest, I was also concerned about cleaning up after him once I got discharged. Mike isn't a bad person. In fact, he's quite kind-hearted. However, he's not particularly good at details or planning, so I felt more at ease with him going back to his parents' house. Since our daughter was still hospitalized, I was discharged first. When I returned home and lay down on the bed, I enjoyed some time alone for the first time in about 10 months and felt at peace. Due to accumulated fatigue and knowing I hadn't been sleeping well recently, I soon fell asleep. I wanted to rest as much as possible before our daughter came home, anticipating even more sleepless nights ahead. I slept soundly until morning, but I still felt very tired and had no energy to get out of bed. Mike was nowhere to be seen. It seemed he went for his morning jog. I thought I could relax a bit more today since Mike had the day off from work. But he loves to exercise, so unless the weather is bad, he's usually out jogging every morning. I planned to prepare brunch together when Mike returned, but just as I was closing my eyes again, the house intercom rang at a rather inconvenient time. Feeling too tired to answer, I decided to pretend I wasn't home. After a while, the intercom rang again. Ugh, no one's here. I mumbled as I dove back into my mattress, only to hear my smartphone vibrating moments later. Thinking something might have happened to my daughter, I rushed to check my phone. It was a call from my mother-in-law. Thankfully, it wasn't about my daughter. However, her tone sounded quite displeased. Hey, stop pretending you're not home and open the door already. Why are you making me wait like this? It turned out she was the one ringing our intercom earlier. Hastily changing, I opened the door to find a very disgruntled-looking mother-in-law holding what seemed like heavy bags. Good morning, Mother. It's been a while. What's with all the bags this early? I greeted her with the best smile I could muster, but her expression remained stern. Why are you sleeping in so late? I assume Mike is out jogging, while your husband maintains a regular exercise routine. Why are you being so lazy? What kind of wife does that make you? She voiced her complaints and, without waiting for a response, proceeded into the living room. Thinking I should get dressed properly, I was about to head to the bedroom when I heard her irritated voice again. Hey, when am I getting my tea? do you think you can just ignore me? Back in my day, we were devoted to our mothers-in-law. Gosh, can't I relax for once? Knowing that I won't have such leisure moments in the future, I replied with a quick, "Coming right now," and hurriedly changed. My relationship with my mother-in-law has always been somewhat strained. When I say somewhat, it's because whenever tension arises, my father-in-law or Mike steps in, making everything seem alright. I believe they aren't consciously doing this. They naturally support us in such instances. Thanks to their interventions, we've managed to avoid major conflicts so far. However, today is different. My dependable Mike and father-in-law aren't home. When I returned to the living room, my mother-in-law was lounging on the sofa, looking as if she was demanding her tea, her posture radiating authority. While I was preparing tea in the kitchen, I noticed a spread of delicious-looking lobster on the living room table. Where did this lobster come from? I asked while pouring the tea. With a hint of shyness, she replied, "I thought we'd celebrate the birth of my first grandchild today, so I had this lobster made especially this morning. Mike will be back soon. Shall we eat together?" It seemed that my mother-in-law did care for me after all. Although I had been annoyed with her earlier, I decided to see her in a new light. Right then, Mike returned from his jog. I was about to get up to greet him at the door, but my mother-in-law rushed to the entrance even quicker than I could. "Welcome back. Mike, I've been waiting. You're so sweaty. How far did you run? You must have worked hard. Look, I brought your favorite lobster. Let's eat together." Mike seemed flustered by her rapid-fire chatter. Has she always been this obsessed with her son? Even though I found it odd, I also greeted him and handed him a towel. As Mike went to take a shower, I began to set the table. My mother-in-law seemed restless, probably waiting for him. Her excitement reminded me of a middle schooler in the throes of her first love. Once Mike came out of the shower, she couldn't wait and beckoned him to sit beside her. He seemed a bit reluctant and looked in my direction, but ultimately sat next to her as she insisted. "Look, Mike! I got lobster from your favorite place. You said you loved this one, right? I wanted to give it to you when you were at home, but I couldn't make it in time. So I thought we'd celebrate today. This is premium lobster costing $500 per serving. I had to pull some strings to get the chef to make it." Her comments felt a bit passive-aggressive. The words "couldn't make it in time" and "just to celebrate" gave me the impression that she was somewhat disregarding me and my daughter. Nonetheless, I'd never seen lobster that cost $500 per serving before, and I had heard rave reviews about this particular lobster place from my husband's family. Indeed, the lobster place was popular enough to be featured on TV and in magazines, so I anticipated it to be as delicious as its reputation. Opening the lobster box, I was genuinely taken aback by the contents. "Look at that! Have you ever seen such glossy and fresh ingredients? Everything's just perfect! Truly, the lobster here is unmatched," she boasted exaggeratedly. Then, with a grand gesture, she opened her box, followed by Mike's. Indeed, an impressive lineup of lobsters awaited us. But in an instant, a realization dawned on me. Without a word, I took the lobster box and threw it into the trash bag.
"Hey, Michelle! What the hell? My mother bought this as a celebration. Why would you throw it away? Seriously, what's gotten into you?"
Mike, who had been gleefully eyeing the lobster moments earlier, now rushed over and grabbed my arm. I was at a loss for words, especially seeing the malicious smirk on my mother-in-law's face.
"What the hell is this? You ruined the lobster my mom brought to celebrate. Do you have a grudge? I don't get what's going on." Although Mike was usually gentle and rarely raised his voice,
He was evidently upset. His grip on my arm tightened. Mike, it's okay. It's my fault. I thought I'd celebrate and bring the lobster, but maybe Michelle truly dislikes me. She never contacts me or visits. But the lobster isn't to blame. Even if she despises me, she could have eaten it. It would have been better if I hadn't come, right? Her overly calm tone seemed to strike a chord with Mike.
Listen, my mom prepared this lobster for you. Don't you feel grateful at all? How long are you going to stay silent? Didn't anyone teach you to apologize when you do something wrong? This is just low. If you won't apologize, we might as well get a divorce. I can't live with someone who doesn't care about trampling over others' feelings.
His firm grip caused the bag with lobster to fall from my hands. And just like that, Mike had mentioned the dreaded word, divorce. I couldn't let myself be blamed without defending myself. This, the one I threw away, is just trash. Yours and your mother's are worth $500, while mine's mere garbage. Look closely. Don't you see? There, lying on the ground. Look! Unable to use my hands, I nodded toward the plastic bag. Mike, still in a state of confusion, followed my direction. After a moment of disbelief, he released my arm and hastily picked up the fallen plastic bag. Upon seeing this, the mother-in-law began to panic. Never mind. It's my fault. I'll just leave, okay? I'll take this trash with me, she hastily offered. She tried to take the bag from Mike, but he pushed her hand away, anger evident in his voice.
Mom? What the hell is this? Why is the lobster yellow? Did you smear mustard all over it? And there's something resembling chili powder on the salmon roll. The bread beneath the egg is also yellow.
As Mike noted each anomaly, his mother's face turned pale. What? Why would... Oh, this must be the chef's doing. Some kind of nasty prank. This is outrageous. Trying to pass the blame, she looked desperate. But Mike wasn't buying it. He took out his phone. Seeing this, the flustered mother-in-law nervously asked, "What are you doing?" To which Mike responded,
I'm going to confirm this with the chef. This is unacceptable.
He began searching for the restaurant's number. In a panic, the mother-in-law snatched the phone from Mike and quickly tucked it into her pocket.
Mom, if this is the chef's prank, it's unacceptable. We're loyal customers. What if this happens again?
Mike was visibly furious. The mother-in-law trembled, gripping the stolen phone tightly. As Mike attempted to retrieve his phone, she finally confessed. I did it! Mike's surprise at not suspecting his mother-in-law was tremendous. Mike probably struggled to understand what was happening. And then the mother-in-law, distraught, began to recount what she had done. Mike wasn't coming home, and I was lonely. After all, Mike is my son, and when this woman was in the hospital, he came home every day. But once this woman was discharged, he said he'd be back. He was saying, I'm leaving until yesterday. That's why I thought he'd come back if they got divorced. I tried to make sure this woman understood that Mike belongs with his mother, me. The two were shocked by the mother-in-law's words. They felt as though they had heard something they shouldn't have. The mother-in-law sobbed miserably, repeatedly murmuring, Mike, Mike.
Mom, I've always been visiting home. I told you I'd be back when I left. What happened? I'm already married, have a child, and I'm a father. I'm not just your child anymore.
Upon hearing that, the mother-in-law looked up and screamed hysterically. I was against marrying such a woman from the start. Even though I fulfilled my duties as a bride properly, this woman spent years and thousands of dollars on infertility treatments, and in the end, she gave birth to a girl instead of a boy. Doesn't she understand that only by producing a male heir can she be recognized as a bride? This is good for nothing.
I thought I could put up with a lobster thing, but hearing this was the last straw. Just as I was about to retaliate, the living room door opened and the father-in-law walked in. You were thinking such foolish things? And you seem to have wasted $500 on lobster, acting so selfishly and causing trouble for everyone. What on earth were you thinking? Turning around, there stood the father-in-law, his face twisted in rage. Both the mother-in-law and Mike were pale with shock. I'm truly sorry, Michelle. You must be tired of the challenges of raising a child ahead. I'll make sure she doesn't interfere with your marriage. Not liking the kind words the father-in-law had for me, the mother-in-law became even more hysterical.
I did nothing wrong. What's wrong with trying to reclaim my adorable son from this wicked woman? Hey, Mike, wake up! You're being deceived by this woman. Wake up! The astonishment of Mike, who never doubted his mother-in-law, was immense. Mike must be struggling to understand what is going on. You're the one who needs to wake up. You spent $1,500 on lobster. Do you even understand the value of that money? Moreover, one of them had ruined with mustard and chili. Didn't you feel guilty for the chef who prepared it? You don't understand the value of money because I've spoiled you. Go and work now. No way! I can't work. It's too late now. When we married, you promised to keep me happy.
Mike promised the same to Michelle. You tried to ruin their happiness. Think it over. The mother-in-law was silent after that. The father-in-law took her and left, only mentioning that he had interrupted. Why did the father-in-law arrive at the right moment? I had secretly called him earlier. After noticing something off with the lobster and discarding it, I called him during the argument between Mike and his mother. I believed he would figure something out, and he did. Days later, I heard the mother-in-law had started a job, cleaning at a company twice a week. It seemed tough for her, but she seemed motivated by her allowance. We live peacefully with our newborn daughter. Mike regrets believing his mother's lies and is now actively participating in household chores and child rearing. Even though he's not good at details, his help is invaluable. Despite being manipulated by the mother-in-law once, we now live calm days. We intend to build a happy home by supporting and helping each other.
If you're not going to help with the chores, I'd prefer if you just left. We were told to leave by Monica in that manner. We were reaching our limits with Monica's domineering attitude. Why not find a new place and start fresh? I also felt that John's suggestion was a good one. The next day, as we relaxed in a hotel room, Monica called several times. But we didn't feel like confronting her now. At this rate, I won't be able to relax. I'll block her calls. I am Julie, and I'm turning 58 this year. I might be getting on in years, but I'm still an energetic housewife. John and I have been together for 34 years. We have an adult son and daughter who are living their own lives. Our daughter is 30 and our son is 27. Our daughter has her own family and is living happily with her 3-year-old. Whenever she brings over our grandchild, their smiles always soothe us. Then there's our son, Sean. After graduating from college, he got a job, but couldn't handle the tough treatment from his boss and came back home. For a while, he was healing mentally, and now he's working a part-time job. We could have let him live alone again, but we worry something might happen. So we'd like him to stay home a bit longer. The gloom on Sean's face when he was struggling with workplace bullying was deep. But now he's slowly brightening up, and John and I are relieved. Seeing Sean play with the grandchild our daughter brings over warms our hearts. And I believe he'll be a wonderful father someday. One day, Sean shared big news in our living room. Apparently, the company where he was part-timing has offered him a full-time position. Salary-wise, it might not be much different from my part-time job. but it seems they have good benefits. Wow, that's amazing. I never expected that. Just be careful about managing your health. Changing your work style suddenly can strain your body. But if you become a full-time worker, will you leave home? You can always stay here, you know. Well, that's the hardest part to say. I've got a girlfriend, and we might live together. What? That's so sudden. John and I were taken aback by Sean's unexpected revelation. We never heard anything about Sean being in a relationship before. But if Sean is happy, we will respect his choice. Right, Sean's an adult now. He can choose his own path. At 27, you should enjoy your life to the fullest. Love, work, everything. Thank you, Dad, Mom. I'm happy to have your support. With that, Sean took the first step towards his new life. Every now and then, we'd get updates and pictures from him. And we'd joyfully imagine his life with his girlfriend. A few months later, even bigger news came from Sean. He and his girlfriend were considering marriage. Tears of joy flowed from our eyes when we heard the news. We never expected he'd start a family so soon. Finally, the day we had been waiting for arrived. Sean was bringing his girlfriend over to introduce her to us. Nice to meet you. I'm Monica. Monica had a gentle aura. She was bright and approachable. Nice to meet you, Monica. Thank you for coming today. Please come in. Let's all have tea together. Oh, that's so kind. Thank you. Her smile was as bright as the sun. And I immediately felt from the bottom of my heart that she was a good person. Afterwards, we enjoyed a casual and lively chat. It seems that Sean and Monica met at work. The two who joined the company around the same time seemed to have often consulted and encouraged each other about work. And I used to be with Monica a lot during new employee training. And I realized that we had a lot in common. And when I got the chance to become a full-time employee, I started thinking about living together. So, what made you think about marriage? Well, I think my 20s is an important time. And I've had a strong desire to build a family during this period. Besides, I dream of living with cute kids someday. Sean often proudly shows me cute pictures of his nephew in front of me. Really, that's news to me. The marriage meeting was in a really homely atmosphere, and everyone was able to talk relaxedly. I felt that Monica was really reliable and cheerful. After Sean and Monica left, when I asked my husband, John, for his impression of her, he said she's a good girl, and it seemed he had taken quite a liking to her. However, what happened afterwards was something no one could have imagined. After their wedding ceremony, when everyone was still basking in the afterglow, we received some concerning news. It was said that Monica had resigned from her job. From what Sean had told us before, even if he became a full-time employee, his salary wouldn't increase that much. So, supporting their life on Sean's income alone might be quite tough. However, Monica's dream is to cherish her family. It seems she decided to quit her job for that reason. If it's something you both decided together, I support you. But Sean, don't push yourself too hard. Don't get sick like before. Thank you, I'll be fine. If anything happens, I'll definitely consult with you. For us, we couldn't help but be worried, but all we could do was trust and support Sean. Time flew by, and before we knew it, a year had passed. Sean would come home for family gatherings and special occasions, but we rarely got to see Monica. I don't think it's good to interfere in a couple's affairs, but I wanted to spend enjoyable time with the whole family at least once a year. However, according to Sean, Monica prioritized visiting her own parents and didn't come here. Sean, how are things at home? Is Monica cooking for you? Well, to tell the truth, we might not be cooking at home that much. Recently, when I look at the trash bags, I notice quite a few packages from ready-made meals. Despite that, she tells me proudly, I made so many dishes especially for today, but I can tell they are actually store-bought. That's surprising. If you're eating out or having ready-made meals all the time, I'd be concerned about health and expenses. And it's not like your salary has increased that much, right? Yay, that's right. I'm sort of making ends meet with overtime pay. But if things continue like this, you might return to the hard times you had before, right? It must be stressful. Well, for now, my relationships at work are good. So in that sense, it's much better than before. But I'm a little worried about my health. I see. But take care not to wear yourself out. John and I were really worried about our son. Still, I'd like Monica to come with you sometimes so we can all chat. Okay, I promise I'll bring her next time. And 2 weeks later, John brought Monica home. When I saw her face for the first time in a while, I was surprised to see that she had changed quite a lot in terms of fashion and hairstyle from her pre-marriage days. We were taken aback by how much had changed. John and I said in astonishment. I wondered where she had learned to be so fashionable as I welcomed the transformed woman into our home. Monica, it's been a while. Have you been well? Yes, more or less. I felt that Monica's demeanor and aura had changed a bit from before. Thanks for taking the time to visit. Well, I had some free time. Later, we enjoyed a meal while engaging in pleasant conversation around the home-cooked dishes I had prepared. It's been a year since you got married, right? How's life with the two of you? Everything going smoothly? Well, there haven't been any major problems. But I do wish Sean had a bit more income. John and I were surprised by Monica's unexpected remark. Monica, you're still young. Have you thought about working part-time or something? Monica seemed slightly displeased. To be honest, I wanted to take care of the home once I got married. Besides, we don't really spend extravagantly or anything. Really. But that outfit looks a bit pricey. It's not that expensive. It's a regular price. Is that so? But I couldn't help but wonder what the real situation was. No matter how much I inquired, I couldn't get more details from Monica. Our supposed happy reunion turned slightly awkward due to our differing opinions. I wanted to offer Monica some advice as a married couple, but we couldn't convey our feelings properly before they left. A few months later, the silence was broken by an unexpected call from Sean. Sean, thanks for calling. It's been a while. Is something wrong? Actually, Mom, my body isn't functioning properly. What? Are you okay? What happened? The thing is, I had to be hospitalized. It turned out that Sean had fallen ill and was admitted to the hospital. Worried, John and I rushed to see him. Seeing Sean after a long time, he looked quite frail, which naturally concerned us. How did this happen? Sean, have you been eating properly? The thing is, Monica and I had some financial issues. Monica made a mistake with an investment, and it affected our living situation. Wait, what? I never would have imagined their life had become so challenging in such a short span of time. I'm so sorry for letting things get to this point. Monica seemed drained and visibly tired. Monica, are you all right? It must have been tough. Yes, I'm truly sorry, especially for causing so much trouble for Sean. Monica seemed more subdued and reserved than before. What are you going to do now? I'm really worried about Sean. Actually, Mom, we have a favor to ask. It's going to be hard for both of us as things stand. If possible, could we stay at the family home for a while? Monica nodded in agreement and softly said, please. All right, Sean, Monica, let's get through this together. Determined to support them both, John and I decided to help in any way we could. As we watched over Sean's recovery, a new chapter in our lives began. Time passed, and Sean started making an effort to not overwork and began returning home at regular hours. Monica also found a part-time job, and together they were trying to repay their debts. However, they were burdened with a massive debt of $30,000. When John and I learned about this amount, we were genuinely shocked. Paying off such a large amount by themselves seemed extremely challenging. So, we decided to lend them a hand. We thought of giving Sean $2,000 every month to help them repay their debt. We felt relieved thinking that at this rate, their debt would be gone in 2 years. But something unexpected occurred. Not even 2 months after we began giving them money, Monica suddenly quit her part-time job. Monica, weren't you supposed to work today? What happened? I just felt a bit tired, so I decided to take a break. After that, she seemed to be in full relaxation mode. She spent more time relaxing at home, which made us a bit worried. When I talked to Sean about it, he also seemed concerned. Actually, Monica has been feeling under the weather recently, but I thought she would get over it. Oh dear, John and I were unsure how to handle the situation. We couldn't openly criticize Monica because we didn't want to burden Sean, but we didn't understand Monica's actions. Moreover, she started eating our groceries and snacks as she pleased. I cautioned her a few times, but she didn't seem remorseful. Then one day, I fell down the stairs and injured my back. I couldn't do household chores for a while, and life became more challenging. Monica, can I ask a favor? Could you help a bit with the chores? Oh, so now you appreciate me being here? With a hint of sarcasm, Monica grinned cheekily. Housework can be tedious, especially when your mother-in-law can't move around. The chores just pile up. Monica seemed to be enjoying making light-hearted jabs at me during the day. Hey, Monica, Julie is struggling right now. Why would you say something like that? She's not feeling well. Please be considerate. John spoke sternly to Monica, but she continued to provoke. Aren't you retiring soon, Father? Don't you think it's strange not to help with chores as you're nearing retirement? Maybe you should take a good look at yourself before criticizing others. Besides, this house will eventually belong to Sean. Maybe you should start thinking about moving. Can't you just leave without getting in our way? Are you serious? Yes, I'd like the nuisances in this house to disappear as soon as possible. Ha ha. That remark pushed our patience to the limit. We were thoroughly exhausted and made a significant decision. In that case, we'll leave. I nodded in agreement with John's suggestion and began packing. At that moment, Sean, looking tired from work, came home. Mom, why are you packing? Well, we've decided to leave for a bit. What? Why? What happened? Ask Monica for details. She should know best. Sean frowned and asked Monica, what did you do? Why are Mom and Dad leaving? I didn't do anything wrong. I just wanted your parents to help more around the house since they move so slowly. After all, this has always been Mom and Dad's house, hasn't it? But won't it eventually become our house? So, I think it might be nice for just the two of us to live here now. I feel that's a bit too sudden. Sean was confused by what Monica was saying. John and I were disappointed with Monica's behavior and decided to keep some distance for a while. Sean, I'm sorry. We've decided to stay in a hotel nearby. Saying that, John and I decided to leave. Later, we stayed at a business hotel and were able to spend a quiet time together after a long time. The next morning, while having breakfast with John, we discussed finding a new home. Throughout the conversation, I kept receiving calls from Monica. Why so many calls? No, by the way, today is the beginning of the month, right? Haha, that's right. It's allowance day. The beginning of the month was the day we gave Monica and her siblings their allowance. Suddenly getting an idea, I playfully operated my phone. What are you doing? I just blocked all the calls from Monica. John laughed. Then, shall we go and leisurely look for a new house? Yes, that sounds good. John and I had actually been thinking about letting go of that old house for a while. We dreamed of finding a smaller apartment that would be just right for our retired life. During this time, because of Monica's behavior, we decided to speed up that plan. We saw an apartment near our eldest daughter's house. When we visited, we felt it was more comfortable than we thought. So we quickly decided to sign the lease. Later, we explained the situation to Sean and, while Monica wasn't around, returned to the house to gather our necessary belongings. We had a serious discussion with Sean about the future and our relationship with Monica. In that discussion, we also expressed our feelings that it might be a good idea to reconsider his relationship with her. It seemed Sean had been thinking a lot too, and he had made up his mind to end his relationship with her. While storing his belongings in our new apartment, he decided to start a new life on his own. However, the storm of calls from Monica was overwhelming. Still, Sean strongly told her that their relationship was over and proceeded with the divorce process. The divorce was finalized without going to court due to some financial issues on her side. Of course, we sold the house, and she had to find a new place to live. However, after she returned to her parents' home, there was a twist. She lied about what had happened, and her parents went to Sean's workplace in anger. But Sean calmly told the truth. Hearing this, her parents were shocked but sincerely apologized to us. What surprised us was that her parents returned all the money we had given to them. We were surprised by Monica's behavior and are truly sorry. We intend to closely monitor her as she works to repay her debts. We sincerely apologize for all the inconvenience we have caused you. Seeing Monica's sincere parents, we felt sorry wondering how Monica turned out the way she did under such kind and considerate parents. Their genuine attitude comforted me a bit. Now, Monica is working hard under her parents' care to repay her debts. On the other hand, Sean has started anew and is finally enjoying his life. He is currently very dedicated to his job and has recently been promoted. Our new home is just perfect. Every day is so comfortable that time flies by. Our eldest daughter, who lives nearby, often brings her children over. Seeing our grandchildren's smiling faces up close fills our hearts. In fact, we are much closer to our eldest daughter's home than before. So we get to see the little changes and new steps in our grandchildren's lives more closely, which brings us so much joy. We cherish daily discoveries and interactions with our family, and we genuinely want to continue spending happy times together in the future.